I'll call to order the City of Arvada workshop for March 13th, 2023. You'll notice we're all wearing caps tonight. I had a little surgery last week, and so I've got some nice bandages on my forehead. So I asked council if it would be okay if I wore a cap tonight. And in a show of solidarity, council all said, we'll wear caps too. So thank you all for playing along. We have two workshops tonight. The first is our quarterly bond project update, and Jacqueline Rhodes is going to lead us off in this discussion.
Do you want me to call roll first?
Well, you think we should? Roll call.
Mayor Williams?
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Jones?
Here.
Councilmember Pfeiffer?
Here.
Councilmember Marriott?
Here.
Councilmember Mormon?
Here.
Councilmember Simpson?
Here.
Councilmember Smith?
Here.
Thank you. Ms. Rhodes.
Team present to you an update. We're not only going to be speaking about our two roadway bond projects, but we're also introducing updates on our utilities bond projects. So with that, I'm going to kick it over to Assistant City Engineer Chris Lisberg.
Good evening, Council. I may have the same message that she just presented, in which we have three project engineers that are intended to speak this evening. Padmini Gudapudi for Ralston Road Phase 2, our newest project engineer as of 6 months ago. On 72nd, you'll see a familiar face with Britton Thomas. And for our utility projects, we'll have our utilities engineering manager speak to the status of those freshly kicked off projects and some or many that are a work in progress. We plan to hit the usual topics on the two transportation bond projects. We feel as though we have a lot to report on. Despite a very blustery winter, we've made a decent amount of progress on both projects. And without further ado, I'd like Padmini Gudapudi to come up. She has been with the city for approximately a year, and in her first 6 months, she was serving as deputy project engineer on Ralston Road and has taken over for the last 6 or so. So without further ado, Padmini.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Padmini Gudipudi. I'm a project manager on Ralston Road Phase 2 project. Today, I'm going to provide you update on what we have completed in the past quarter and what we planned for the next few months. First, I'll start my update with the right-of-way acquisition. For this project, in total, we need 49 parcels acquisition. Last time when we did the presentation, gave an update on the bond projects, we were still need to acquire 2 parcels which were in eminent domain. Right, as of today, we acquired those 2 parcels as well, and we also completed some of the temporary construction easement extensions which we needed due to some of the delays that we incurred in this project. So with that, I would like to say we completed all the right-of-way acquisition that we needed for this project so far. However, we ended up spending a little bit more than the initial budget we allotted for this project. We are over around 20% for right-of-way acquisition and its services. Moving on to the budget and the expected cost on this project, the initial budget for this project was $18.8 million, which includes $3.5 million from AURA funds. However, due to some of the redesign and other additional scope of work we have on this project, the expected cost of the project to complete this is close to $22.5 million, but this total amount does not include the change order that we have been negotiating with our contractor right now. So moving on to the construction phasing, this project is phased out in 3 stages, NTP 1, 2, and 3. As part of NTP 1, the main work is utility relocation. Most of this work is completed. We still have some of the work on the southeast side. That's why I still have it as a 99% complete here. And as a part of the NTP 2, NTP 2 is planned for north side widening from Yukon to Estes and a south side widening from Garrison to Estes. Hammond completed the bottom 2 lifts on the north side and they shifted the traffic in September of 2022. However, they were not able to pave the road on the south side between Garrison and Estes due to some of the unanticipated issues on this project. As part of NTP 3, NTP3 is phased to construct on the south side widening and the rest of the north side widening from Garrison to Estes. This work is still ongoing, and most of the underground work on the south side is complete, and the north side underground work is yet to be finished. With respect to the project budget, the total budget on this project is $22.5 million. We spent about 71% of that budget. With respect to the construction budget, the total is $12.8 million, which does not include the change order. Out of $12.8 million, we spent about 73% of that budget with the last month pay estimate. The initial project, according to the initial contract, the project completion is May 2023. However, due to some additional delays and additional work, we are anticipating this project to take until end of this year. This project initially started in 2021 and supposed to be done in 2 years. Moving on to the how much work we have accomplished in the past quarter and what we are planning for the next few months. Hammond, our contractor, completed the north side stormwater work, and also they shifted the traffic onto the north side phase, and they're currently working on the south side underground work. They also completed a contaminated soil that we encountered at a Sinclair gas station on the south side. They also completed a curb and gutter work on south side from Garrison to most of the until Estes. Currently, they're working on pouring the sidewalk, preparing the road base, and putting a aggregate base course and a geogrid so that they can be ready for paving in end of April or beginning of May. Weather permits. We are hoping we should be able to pave from Garrison to at least until Carr Street on the south side. Once we complete the paving, we are planning on shifting the traffic and then work on the remaining north side of the project.
Before you move on, a question for legal. You don't have to give us an answer tonight. Do we have any recourse against the Sinclair gas station for the contamination?
This is an issue I would probably have to look into
And then-
to let
yeah.
you know for certain one way or the other, but I'm happy to send you a memo, confidential memo, once we have that information in
Very
hand.
good. Okay. Go
Any
ahead.
question? Okay. Just to shift the gaze a little bit here, I know I've been talking about additional scope of work and unanticipated work on this project. The first one is contaminated soil at a Sinclair gas station. We did not anticipate this work. However, when Hammond was excavating on the south side near a Sinclair gas station, they encountered a significant amount of contaminated soil. Around more than 200 trucks of contaminated soil had to move to the waste management because they can't use that dirt since it's a contaminated one. This caused additional budget overruns, also schedule delays. This is one of the main reasons why we couldn't pave on the south side as part of the NTP2. The second one is additional stormwater work on the south side. When our inspecting team inspected the underground storm sewer network, we have noticed that it is at end of its lifetime. Our utilities team and engineering team discussed and come to a common conclusion that this is the best time to replace because it is coming to end of its life. Not entire stormwater network, but parts of the network is actually at end of its life. So we decided to go ahead and replace the additional stormwater work on the south side. We requested our contractor to perform this additional work, and they are actually working on that right now. Moving on to the challenges, I know this slide has been presented in the past also. The first and foremost challenge that we faced on this project is the utility relocations from third party like Excel, Comcast, or CenturyLink. This took substantially longer than anticipated, which caused some of the schedule delays on the project. The next one is additional scope of work related to the stormwater network and also the contaminated soil that we had to haul to the waste management. The third one is the development work. So far, we have 3 developers on this project stretch. Already 2 of the developers started their construction and third developer is in the process. We are happy this project improvements are actually attracting developers and business owners. However, this had a little bit of a hiccup with the project construction schedule as well, because we had to communicate and coordinate with the third developer's contractor as well. Also at the same time, our contractor ended up doing some additional work for developer utility connections. That also took us a little bit of a hit when it comes to the schedule. But at that point in time, we thought that's the best way to get utility connections done for the developer instead of bringing a third person or third contractor into the picture. Last and the final is the public impacts related to the road closure on this project stretch. Out of 49 parcels or a total 50 parcels, 95% of the parcels are mostly business owners. Whenever a contractor needs to perform any construction work or any underground excavation work, we have to make sure that we provide a proper business access, safe access to the business owners, and also have access to their parking lots. This posed some constraints to the contractor, and we are not letting them to close the side streets also at a longer run for more than like 2.5 months or 3 months. So whenever there is any underground work, they have to close the road. And even though when the road closure happens, we have to make sure that business owners have access either from the north side or the south side. So that has some hiccups with the construction. To give you an example, at a Balsam Street intersection, they have to perform some of underground related construction work. However, when a school is in session, we are not allowing them to close the Balsam Street completely, because we have to make sure that school kids and the parents and the school buses have a proper access to the school. So they had to postpone that work until summer, so that when the school is closed, they can perform that work and by closing the Balsam Street. That is just one example. There are many examples like that. Moving on to the community outreach, both Hammond and the City of Arvada have a communication coordinators and the communication managers who constantly keep up to date who constantly communicate with the business owners and also additional stakeholders on this project. Whenever there is any road closure or is there any water shutdown that is going to happen because of the construction work on the Ralston, we are making sure that everyone is informed well beforehand so that they can plan accordingly. And also, if there are any issues with the road closure, we are making sure that business owners at that location who are affected by that road closures are okay with it. If it's not, if they have any constraints, we are trying to accommodate their request. I do acknowledge there are some, I would say, some small or slight difficulties on the project stretch when they're driving. For example, there are no left turns on the project stretch. That is a little bit of a, I would say, inconvenience for the people who are driving or who are coming to City Hall or post offices. However, our motive here is to provide a safe commute and also less congested route on Ralston Road while the construction is in progress. With that, I would like to conclude my presentation, and I already mentioned this to you that the final or expected completion date on this project is end of 2023. However, the original completion is May 3rd, 2023. With all the delays and additional scope of work, we won't be able to achieve the initial completion date. Our best estimate is end of this year. With that, I'll end my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you.
Mr. Marriott.
Thank you. I have two questions. One for you, Padmini. The first one I would have is as we go along through this construction season, if there's anything we can do to ensure that either all or almost all of it gets paved in this construction season, and that we don't end up just short and end up then with the road unpaved until the following year when it gets warm enough to do asphalt. And so even if there was a section that couldn't get, but is it possible to really double our efforts to make sure that the paving happens in this construction season?
We are trying our best to make sure all the paving is completed by end of this year. If there are any landscaping items, maybe that may move to the that's what we are trying our best. That's why we are asking our contractor to be ready for paving as soon as the weather gets a little bit better.
Right, okay, thank you. And then this is the second one. This is maybe for the team, or this might even be the city council or whoever. I think your team has done a great job of keeping access to everybody along the corridor as we go along. And for people who work in offices along the corridor, you know, as an employee where you're going every day, you navigate your way around and you know where you can turn and where you can't turn. And of course, for the school, we're not allowing the contractor to close that intersection until the school's out, so we lessen their impact there. But the businesses are the ones, I think, who have suffered a little bit disparate impact because their customers maybe don't come so frequently, and they may actually be losing some customers because of the difficulty of getting in and getting out. And I wonder if there's anything we can do, and again, this might be towards council or towards the team, with some of the tools we have, whether it be Aura or whether it be AIDA, to recognize and maybe try to do something along the corridor for those businesses. And I think of something like a 50-50 sign program that AIDA could do or Aura could do, or something to where at the completion of this project, the businesses could all get new signs so it all looks good when the street's good, and they receive some kind of, I wouldn't call it compensation, but just some kind of recognition or award for the difficulties that some of them have had over this multi-year project in, having the same number of customers come to them that they would. And I guess if we don't have anything like that planned, I would encourage us to start thinking about that and just see if there's something we could do. I wouldn't go crazy doing it, but just something for the businesses along there.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Let me talk to the team and see what might be possible. Anything does come with a price tag, of course, and so.
Of course.
But I certainly appreciate, we've had a lot of conversations with our businesses, and they've been overall fantastic working through this.
Yeah, and I do want to recognize you guys have done a great job keeping access open.
Thank you.
It's just unpredictable for a customer who doesn't go very often, that last time it was here and now it's here, and I can turn here but now I can't turn there. So
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit uniquely difficult for the businesses.
With the additional storm sewer work, I would definitely agree with that. When we are actually on the construction stretch, we had to get the redesign services done. So that posed a little bit of difficulty as well with the road closure. So, but we are trying our best. For some of the business owners, we are actually trying to see if we can pave their parking lots first, so that it can be accessed a little bit better than before. So.
Right, thank you.
Great. Are we, in terms of the cost for the stormwater replacement, is that being charged to that enterprise versus to this project? And shouldn't it be?
Jacqueline's going to address that question. I'm looking for a friend.
No, I appreciate that
Parts
question.
of it
Actually,
have been.
I believe you brought this up at one of our prior updates, and we did review some of the additional scope of work added, and we were able to reallocate some stormwater funds to this
Great,
project.
good,
I wouldn't say it covers the entire gap, but we were able to identify a portion.
good. Thank you.
Thank you. Any other questions?
I don't see any.
Okay. Next, I would like to invite my Supervisor Britton to give an update on the 72nd Avenue project. Thank you.
Good evening, City Council and Mr. Mayor. I will be giving an update on 72nd Avenue bond project. One thing I'll add to Padmini's presentation, we have approved Saturday work on Ralston Road for Hammond to make sure that they do get finished this year. Moving on to 72nd, right of way first, we have one parcel left to acquire. That homeowner has signed his papers, and we are just waiting to get scheduled for closing at this point. That would round us out at a total of 72 parcels that we needed to acquire. The only thing that has come up in the last quarter is that we have temporary construction easements that we need to extend for an additional 6 months, and we've identified 19 of those easements that need to be extended, and our legal department is sending out the notices for that.
Am I reading that right, the eminent domains with the railroad? You have it circled around the railroad tracks.
It's just, it actually should be just slightly east of that. Sorry, the purple parcel just east of the railroad,
Oh, so
actually.
You're not taking eminent domain from the railroad?
No, I don't think we could. Sorry about that. The circle must have gotten scooched over a little bit there. Moving on to the construction phasing, construction package number 1 was all utilities, and that was complete last year. And we've moved on to construction package number 2. We're about halfway through that construction package, and I'm happy to say we're ahead of schedule at this point. Construction package number 3 is from Oak to Kipling, and that includes the railroad underpass, and I'll speak a little bit about that later.
Sorry, can I ask a question about construction package 2? When you say we're almost complete, then I'm assuming that includes all the wall and everything that's done on personal property along there that I hear a lot about.
We're, maybe I misspoke, halfway through that construction package, and we are ahead of schedule at this point.
Okay, but once that is done, then we'll be done with any work on anyone's property along that part. Is that correct?
Yes, between Swadley and Oak.
Yes, thank you.
Correct. Moving on, just a few photos of current progress. On the left side here, you see paving, which was on the south side of 72nd, down near Swadley and the church. On the right side, this is the new retaining wall near the church. This is at the southwest corner of Sims and 72nd. Moving on again, on the left side here, this is also on the church property. This is our water quality pond. This is what we call the forebay, right at the beginning of the pond. It's intended to slow down the water coming out of the storm sewer system and allow trash and various debris to drop out in this area so that it can easily be removed at a later date. On the right side, you'll see some water line work at Sim Street. This is our largest wall. This is along the south side between Quail and Oak Street. Some of this wall gets up to 10 foot tall, and I can thank our drone team for getting us this shot here. This is work near the church as well. It's a section of colored concrete. It goes in fairly bold and red. It does weather to a lighter shade over time. And all of this work was in Sim Street, right in the intersection. So this is why we had to have it closed for 19 days at the end of last year. You can see large water pipe going in there. That's the blue pipe. I believe that's the 24-inch pipe right there, and it's going in over top of a storm sewer pipe. You can see that's quite close clearance. On the right side is just one of the inlets on the north side of Sim Street there. The Grange is in the background. Moving on to work upcoming, we have lots of utility work coming up on the north side that's already underway. Walls as well on the north side. Those are also underway. And lots of permanent fence going up on both sides of the street. Upcoming closures. We have a closure coming up next week, so that's during spring break. We planned that on purpose so that schools would not be in. We are going to close 72nd for most of the week. There's a chance that that work could get finished early, but right now we have it closed all week between Sims and Oak. So residents will be able to get to their homes. We'll make sure of that, but no through traffic. Also coming up at the end of the month is Quail Street. We're going to close Quail Street at 72nd 2 different times, and that'll be sort of a long weekend work, both of those times. The first time being water line work. We'll get the new water line installed. And the second closure will be for the intersection work that we have there. In the future, we will see another Sims Street closure. That would be for the north side, the north leg of Sims. But that date is to be determined yet. Moving on to the budget, you'll see on the left side here, this is our total budget. We've spent close to $25 million at this point. And in the middle here, this is our owner's rep, and you can see they've spent about 75% of their budget. They have done quite a bit more work than we anticipated to this point, primarily coordinating with our dry utilities. So that would be Excel, Comcast, and CenturyLink. We had not anticipated the need for that at the beginning of this project, and they've done a pretty good job of keeping those utility contractors on task. So we would be expecting to see a change order, especially for construction package number 3. Moving on to the design on the right side here, you can see that design has spent pretty much all their budget at this point, and we would not be expecting a change order. We have seen change orders in the past from our design group there, but they were instructed the last time we approved a change order that this would be the last one unless there were extraordinary circumstances. So even though they have spent their budget at this point, we're not expecting any additional change orders from them. Moving on to the construction budget, you can see construction package number 1 is pretty well spent. We're just closing the books on that one over the next couple months here. Any money that we hadn't spent on construction package 1 will just slide over to construction package number 2. You can see construction package number 2, we spent about half the budget, and that's right about where we are with construction, so we're on track. Moving on to the status of Union Pacific coordination. Everything above the line there on the screen has been completed, and the future is in bold at the bottom. We resubmitted 60% bridge plans in early February, and we are expecting about a 6-week turnaround, which we should hear back from the railroad even this week still. We are cautiously optimistic that we'll get approval on 60%, which will then kick us off for everything below the line. It'll kick us off for a site visit, and that's for the shoe fly track. It'll kick us off for 60% plans for the temporary bypass and track plans, the shoe fly plans. It'll also kick us off for 90% bridge plans. So it's a big milestone that we've been trying to get through for quite some time. But we are cautiously optimistic that we will get approval of 60% this time and be able to move on. Looking at the estimated schedule for construction package number 3, so based on where we are currently in end of Q1 of 2023, assuming we can get 60% bridge plans approved, then projecting out 90%, 100% by the end of the year, being able to kick off the agreements towards the end of the year. The railroad will not let us kick off those agreements until we have 100% bridge plans. So unfortunately, we can't overlap there, but we would expect 3 to 6 months on the agreements. And so that pushes us out to start construction in Q2 of next year. Assuming that would push the end of construction out into mid-2026. Community feedback. We've had a total of between 50 and 60 contacts over the last, through January. And generally just people concerned with traffic, wanting to know how the construction's going, that sort of thing. We did have quite a few comments about potholes. That was right at the end of last year, beginning of this year. That was due to a Excel's contractor not patching the road properly, and some large potholes popped up there. We spent quite a bit of time getting those repaired and directing that contractor to get those repaired, and they have been holding since that date. We continue to keep an eye on the whole project corridor and patch potholes as quickly as we can. One thing I will mention that has come up more recently here, we did have a boring contractor who was boring for the new signal at Quail Street. He did hit the existing sanitary line there, and it did back up into one home. As soon as we found out about it, the city crews responded, cleaned out the manhole, got water flowing so that it wasn't a problem. And we did get restoration crews out there immediately and, repairing the homeowner's basement. There were just a couple of inches of water in her basement. And so the response was very good. Unfortunately, it did happen, and we are going to implement some even more, implement a little more, say, QA/QC on our end to make sure that these boring contractors are doing their due diligence and locating the existing utilities so that we don't get another hit like this.
Now, the email we got from that homeowner was very nice, very understanding, frankly, and I'm glad our team was able to get it dealt with as quickly as we did.
Yeah, it is an unfortunate, thing that happened, but city crews responded fantastically and,
Right.
and got it taken care of as quickly as possible.
Pass on our gratitude for that.
We continue to closely coordinate with both schools on the project. Lincoln Academy, their representative is typically at our weekly meeting every week. And then we contact Oberon Middle School whenever something's coming up that would directly impact them. And everything seems to be going pretty well with those both those schools right now.
Did we turned for individuals that had tire damage and stuff, we directed them towards the carrier for the contractor, as I recall, right?
That is accurate. We did have our internal claims adjuster assist them with that process, just to ensure that their claims were received and managed and all of that.
And from everything we've heard, those have been handled
That's correct.
very good. Okay.
Moving on to our challenges and risks, Union Pacific Railroad. It'll stay at the top of the list, I think, through the end of this project, and we'll keep managing that as best we can. We've talked about supply chain earlier. We talk about supply chain every single week, trying to identify materials that may take a little longer to get these days than previous or in the past. One of those is the major steel components. We are looking at a 1-year lead time on those steel components. We do have a material procurement package prepped so that once we get 60% approval from the railroad, we would be reasonably certain that those large steel components would not change at that point, and at that point we would be able to start ordering the steel. We have had some delays from Comcast, and I'm happy to say that most of those items and conflicts have been taken care of at this point. Phase 2, we do have a different contractor, and we also have a lot more time for them to relocate their facilities, so we don't anticipate any delays from here on out. Uh-oh.
Can I ask a question about the Comcast? So I did receive a concern by a resident about their Comcast not getting good reception, and they contacted Comcast, and Comcast pretty much pointed to the city and said it was an issue of the city. And so I'm just curious if you know any more about that.
I had not heard that.
Okay.
Not about, we have had some interruptions on the project where, maybe a contractor might snag a line accidentally, but I haven't heard anything about just general
Councilmember Mormon, I
bandwidth.
can jump in here on that. So we did check with Comcast about this, and they did determine that this was an issue that they needed to address, and Rick Osmus has been working with them to try to figure out exactly what the issue is and how to fix it. I've asked Rick to make sure that he lets me know what the outcome of that is so that I can report back to you on the
Okay.
final issue. But they are working at making sure that that gets resolved.
Awesome, thank you. Appreciate it.
Moving on, as we've mentioned in the past, this project will exceed budget. This is primarily due to price escalations of materials. And you can see here on this graph on the right, since the beginning of 2019, construction costs have gone up 76%. And so that's what we're battling against, especially for our construction package number 3. Moving forward, we have asked our contractor to give us a rough order of magnitude pricing, which they did back in April, May of last year. Our finance department has been looking into where we get those additional funds. And of course, our design team is always looking for ways to save a few bucks on the project. Looking at our spending forecast here, we're kind of right in the middle of the graph there, where it turns from solid blue line to dash blue line. And we are expecting this project to go over by approximately $30 million. On the right side, you'll see here in blue is our original bond, $64.5 million. Our finance department has identified an additional $7 million that we can use from CIP funds. We can issue the remaining debt on the original bond in the order of $4.5 million. And then we can issue a certificate of participation in upcoming years, and that we could have up to $20 million come from that. So you can see that the finance department has done a good job of identifying where we can get these additional funds that we believe we will need on the project, and so that we can continue with the project as a whole. And with that, are there any questions on 72nd Avenue?
Mr. Mormon?
I just want to commend you and the team on this massive project, and I know we're not near the finish line yet. We've got a ways to go, but lots of moving parts to it, and it impacts many different parts of our constituents and businesses and homes. So I know there's been a lot of things that come up, and that you handle it so well. So I really appreciate you and the city manager and the team on dealing with all those pieces. Thank you.
Thank you.
Ms. Smith?
Yes, I was just wondering if we have talked about what our strategy is around communicating, one, the closure, that main March 21st to 24th, and then secondly, a $30 million uptick, I think, is also something that requires strong messaging to get ahead of. So I'm just wondering if we talked about what our communication strategy is going to be.
As far as the closure goes, we've been communicating that over the last couple of weeks. We do have weekly emails that go out to any citizen that signs up, and that information also goes on our website to try to get out to as many people as possible. As far as the $30 million, this is kind of the initial effort to bring that out to the public, and we'll be reaching out with additional information, from here on out.
Okay, so the March 21st to 24th is an opt-in with the emails, but what about any of our other marketing strategies? for the broader
We
public?
our communications department does reach out via Nextdoor to try to get that information out. And our contractor also has a public information officer that tries to get it out to as many people as possible.
Okay.
Do we use some of those portable signboards as well, and the Wanko boards?
Yeah,
Okay.
we do have those changeable message boards on both sides of the project. And on Sims, I'm not sure if there's one on Kipling or not, but yeah, and we do change those. It's like upcoming closure, that sort of thing. We do see that those aren't noticed a whole lot, so less impact there.
But we should still do them.
Yes.
Yeah,
and we
I
do.
think just the overall messaging is that I think they're going to be angry for both of those, and just if we can get ahead of it in whatever communication strategy works best, it'd be helpful.
I think we're trying to reach out any way we can.
Okay, I don't see any other question on that, so next we'll talk about some water and sewer lines.
Yeah, let's, just the takeaways from our last two presentations. Ralston Road is moving forward with storm sewer and concrete, mostly on the south side there. Weather permitting, we're going to get paved on portions of the project next month. And again, the project completion date has been moved to the end of the year, December of 2023. And we are expecting some budget overruns on that project. 72nd Avenue, CP2 is well underway and actually ahead of schedule at this point. CP3, 60% bridge plans, again, resubmitted in February, and we're expecting to hear any day now back from the railroad. Hitting our 85% on both projects. Currently, we have hit 85% of spending on Ralston Road, but as a total bond, we expect to hit that 85% spending in Q1 of 2024. And as always, we do drone flights about every 3 weeks, and those are uploaded to the city's website. So have a look there.
Great, thank you.
Mr. Mayor, if I could just make one comment?
You bet.
I was just going to say, with regard to the street closures, I don't recall hearing a lot of noise around the closure of 72nd and Sims. So my guess is that whatever you did then worked. So hopefully you can do something very similar. But I personally didn't get any noise. I know that's not in my district, but people drive through there all the time. So anyway, my hope is that it'll be messaged and communicated the same way.
Good point.
And we have.
Good, thank you.
All right, good evening.
Good evening, happy anniversary.
Thank you. As I told Lisa, 23 years means that my husband went to Phoenix without me on our anniversary. But yeah, here to talk about water and sewer. Because we're just kicking these off, this format's a little bit different. Tonight, I'm going to tell you how we plan to spend the money, and because I can be an overachiever, how we plan to spend all 100% within 3 years, knowing that the guidance is 85%. This is in support of Council Goal SR3, which is to update the master plans and develop an implementation plan to address all the findings. And I think we have said thank you before. I hope we have. As staff, we are very grateful for all the time you have given us the last 2 years. We've had lots of conversations. Not only did you give us that time, we feel like we've been heard and you've listened. We now have the staff to implement this, and we have the money, the bonds, so thank you. And some fun pictures for what we're doing with the money. The solids handling pad, that's out at Ralston Water Treatment Plant. And what that pad is for is that when we pull solids out to dispose of them, we have to wait for testing to come back. And historically, that's just been on the ground, which is not a great solution. It doesn't meet stormwater rules and some other things. So now Brad and his team have this really pretty pad that meets current regulations. Pipe for 81st and Kipling. The fun part on this one is we thought we were going to have to wait 4 or 5 months to get pipe, and the contractor was able to get it within a month. So we're crossing our fingers that some of the supply chain issues have really started to ease up. That was the first truckload. All of the pipe for the project is now sitting in the wastewater yard, because that's the most convenient place for it to sit for the duration of the project. And then the bottom one, super exciting for water nerds. We almost never get to see filter under drains because they're covered with media. So we got to see filter under drains. That mustardy color is the old one, and the bright silver on the right is the retrofit, which was a cost savings in that we didn't pull out the old ones. We just put something on top. So this slide lists the projects that we listed in the bonds. So these are the projects that we can spend money on. And spoiler alert, we're doing all of them. So I'll just move forward. On the water side, most of these projects are in construction. So we feel really confident around the money that we're listing here. Gross Reservoir, obviously this is an ongoing project with invoices coming regularly from Denver Water now. Ralston Water Treatment Plant on both the filter and the solid side. The 2021 water line replacement, that probably sounds a little funny, we're in 2023. This is the ongoing annual program, but in 2021, staff identified a number of sections that are very technical and complicated, and so we're using a consultant for that, so it's taken us a little longer to get it underway. We do expect to put that project out for bid next month. The 2023 waterline project, we are still working on identifying which projects are highest priority with the intent to begin design in June. LCRR, that is lead and copper rule revision. This is a regulatory requirement that came out of primarily Flint, Michigan and Washington, D.C. issues around lead in homes. It's a regulatory requirement. The first stage of it, we selected a contractor, consultant last week, and then next year we will be doing additional work around service line replacement. And then the last one is smart meters, which is an ongoing program to give us new transponders, very similar to the transponders Excel is installing as well, that are real-time. Yeah.
I have a question for you on the LCRR replacements. Have you guys completed kind of the inventory of service lines?
We
and
have.
How big of an issue is that in Arvada for non?
It's not a huge issue. I don't remember numbers. Do you remember numbers, Sharon? Yeah, maybe 500, and they're actually not lead, they're galvanized.
Right, okay. Did we actually have any lead ones?
Not that we can find.
Not that we know, right, okay. Okay,
So.
thank you.
So that's good news.
And is there a plan for those? Is there a grant program or anything like that? Or is the city going to replace those? Do we have any idea what the plan for that is?
Do you want to take that one? Because I could speak to it, but I might get it wrong. Oh, not quite right.
I volunteered to answer this one. I'm glad you asked this question, Councilmember Marriott. I'm Sharon Israel, I'm the Utilities Director. We are preparing a few different options for council's consideration. So we've got some good numbers from Denver Water, and they're a contractor that's doing a lot of heavy lifting on this across the city in Denver. So that's helping us fine tune what the budget request is. This $1.5 million is in general what the full cost would be for all of the line replacements. So we've got some discussions coming forward that will help give us direction on how much the city wants to contribute.
Okay, and you'll have options for us then?
That's exactly right.
Potential plans, okay.
Yes, we're working on that right now. Thanks.
And before you leave, Sharon, do we have an estimate from Denver on the status of Gross Reservoir and when they think they'll have the dam done and
Thank you, yes.
start filling?
Sure, I'm happy to do that. So the plan is still to complete construction in 2027. That is on schedule. They've been a little slow this winter just because of the weather, but they built some contingencies into the schedule. So what that looks like is we are still expecting deliveries to start in 2028. As I think Mary mentioned, we're starting to see a lot higher monthly bills. So we're paying about $2 to $2.5 million a month right now to Denver Water to support this project. But we're expecting to get probably an update sometime this summer and hopefully a tour.
Right, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you, Sharon. All right, on the sanitary sewer side, there's just a whole lot more projects, so it's on 2 slides. The first one are things that we've already started. NTL is North Trunk Line, CRT is Central Ralston Trunk Line, so are we draining the north part of the city or the middle part of the city? As we talked about last March and April, we are approaching the North Trunk Line with an overall preliminary design, and then we're going in and doing sections and segments by risk, which ones are the highest risk. That preliminary design is underway. The consultant has been hired. They are screaming through their schedule exactly as they told us they would, which is fabulous because it's fairly aggressive. And that should be done by the end of the year. Central Ralston Trunk 6, that's at 69th and Ward. It was actually in the budget because we know a section of pipe is near failure, but a much longer segment was identified in the master plan as being under capacity. That one is nearing completion on design. We should get 100% documents next month. NTL4 Phase 1, this is also known as 81st and Kipling, or Councilor Mormon's neighborhood. The contractor has been selected, is under contract because we have pipe, and we are hashing out a last couple of details on bypass pumping. I would expect activity within the next week or two. And then NTL10, that's the railroad tracks down at Tennyson. The consultant has been hired, and we're at about 30–40% design on that one. So moving forward with what is planned, CRT 7, that is Davis Lane Park. It's basically where Ralston Creek crosses Sims. The RFP is being issued this week for consulting. Phase 2 of the 81st and Kipling, and NTL 7, which is where we all looked at the manhole and went, wow, that's really close. Both of those are higher priority, and the consultant has told us that they will have concepts ready such that we can go to an RFP at the end of May for consulting work on both of those. CRT 9, that is northwest of Sims and 69th, and then just continues northwest. We're looking to do that in early fall. And then along 84th, east of Sims, along with a new force main from the Elkhire Pump Station, go to RFP for a consultant in the fall. And then the last one to round out, having spent $50 million, would be North Trunk Line 8, which is the area south of Hidden Lake. So we told you last March and April that we had an aggressive plan. We are continuing down that aggressive path. Yeah.
Mary, I have a couple questions for you on that. So one of them was, I know in part of the plan is an interceptor line way out west in the Candelas area. And I believe, is that not part of this bonding project?
That is actually being built by the Trailstone Development.
Okay.
So it is, well, there's two pieces to that. There's one that's under construction.
Okay.
That's being built by JCMD, and then the other piece of that is being built by Trailstone.
Okay. And those are on schedule to?
I think so. Jacqueline has, I haven't talked to Jenny in a couple months.
Yeah, that's okay. That's okay. That doesn't matter. I just wanted to see where that fit in. The other thing is, I know when we took a tour and contemplated some of this stuff, one of the concerns we had was the availability of consultants and contractors and all that. But it sounds like from this update that you guys have kind of got that solved. Has the environment changed with that? Or do we anticipate going forward as we do these projects to run into that where we run into capacity and difficulty of completion problems?
I would say that we are working very hard to mitigate it as a concern. My team and myself are doing a lot of outreach with that community so that they know we have this work coming up.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Well, it looks.
And I think we're being successful.
Yeah,
so.
It looks great from these slides. You know, that something that was a concern appears like it's not the thing that's saying we're behind on this because of this, or we're trying to start this, but we can't until we get the, so it looks like you're accommodating it anyway.
We hope so. We got 9 contractors bidding on the 81st and Kipling.
Oh,
so that was a fantastic sign.
Right, okay.
I'm sure it is. They were excited about having to do traffic control every night for the park so that we can keep open access to the new playground. So this next slide that was a lot of numbers and a lot of words, just a map of where we're doing stuff. Solid lines mean that the work is underway. Dashed lines mean the work is planned. We don't yet have a consultant on board or a contractor. Blue is water, orange is sewer. We are working across the city. Any questions on the map?
You're good.
All right. So takeaways on the utilities is that the water bond projects are mostly in the construction stage. And that's primarily because we had two giant projects, Gross Reservoir and the Ralston work, that were already in construction. Sanitary sewer projects are underway, and I say a robust plan, aggressive plan, but we are working very hard on it to bring more segments into design and then construction. As always, have to mention, projects not actually under contract. Those are in late 2022 dollars, and they are Class 5 estimates. But 81st and Kipling came in slightly under our estimate, so that was also a fantastic. Both water and sewer, the projects listed are not the entirety of the need that we talked about last March and April. But a reminder that our financial strategy was more than one bond issuance, so it's all part of the plan. We're just at the beginning stages. So, any questions?
All right, I don't see any additional questions.
All
Thank
right.
you.
Thank you.
We're now going to move into a discussion of our communications and engagement plan. Is Rachel Kay going to lead us in this? Thank you, Rachel.
Thank you. Thank you for allowing me to get my presentation going while I do double duty here tonight. So thank you, Mayor and Mayor Pro Tem and members of council. It's an honor to be here before you tonight to talk about communications and engagement. My name is Rachel Kuro-Iwa, and I'm the Director of Communications and Engagement for the city. So here's what we're going to cover tonight. I'm going to do a quick strategy review and then dive into 2022 results and updates. I'll go through work systems, marketing, engagement, and then we'll talk about 2023 strategic goals and hopefully have a nice discussion at the end. So as a reminder, our strategy has been in development over the past 3 years. We've developed an overarching strategy and framework for our communications and engagement efforts. This is connected to our council's strategic results and our priority areas. Our communication strategy is multi-channel and integrated, and we'll talk more about what that looks like in day-to-day. We also have a coordinated team that works together to share information with our community. So we're not working independently, we're working quite closely together. And with that overarching strategy in place, we're now focusing on implementation through specific projects, strategic plans, and guidelines for improving our communication and engagement work. Our strategy is grounded in principles from our International Association of Public Participation, or IAP2, and these principles help us define engagement and be purposeful with what we're doing. So we're always being thoughtful about what our intentions are, what we're asking of the community, and their level of involvement. When we don't have a question for the community, we don't want to ask it. We want to just share information. So we need to be very thoughtful about how we're designing our communication and engagement work. We are really committed to IAP2 as an organization. This year, we've been growing our involvement. We have more members. The city, actually everyone in the city team is a member of IAP2, but we're connecting people more directly with trainings and with the organization. And I also serve on the IAP2 USA DEI committee. So it's helping to guide practitioners across the country in best practices for inclusion and diversity in their public participation projects.
From that strategy and framework, we have these 4 priority or program areas where we do our work: community engagement, external communications, internal communications, and creative services. All the members of our communication and engagement team are working at different times in each of these areas, so they're not meant to be kind of silos or buckets, but just sort of we all move between them intentionally for different projects. So with our overarching strategy and framework in place, I said that we are moving towards implementation. And so that's taking the form of these developing more strategic plans on specific topic areas, and also improving our policies and things like that so that our work, we can elevate our work. So these are some of the strategic areas we've been working on in 2022. And I'll talk more about each one of them as they come up in the updates. But I just wanted to highlight them here because I think they're really important. So more about those in future slides. All right, so let's talk about some results. So we do a lot of work in communications and engagement. We'll start with social media. We sent 2,600 messages on social media in 2022, and that resulted in 35,000 engagements. So that can be likes, shares, comments on those messages. Facebook is where we get our highest engagement. Instagram and LinkedIn are areas of growth. We do get really nice engagement on Instagram, but we're still growing our audience there. One thing to note is, and this is a trend across social media, is that while we did gain followers on Facebook, for example, we're gaining fewer than years past. So we're gaining them at a slower rate. And that's just something that we're seeing. Facebook in the last year has lost, for the first time ever, has lost people. Twitter has seen a contraction in people that are on Twitter. So, social media is volatile, but we still think it's important and we're using it. An interesting tidbit from Facebook is our audience is 70% women, so reaching a certain segment of the population.
Ms. Simpson, you got a question, and you're probably one of the ones pushing up those hours on viewing. Just saying.
Probably. So quick question. Whenever I see the social media posts, often, they get lots of comments, and some comments are just not anything that need to be responded to. But every once in a while, like somebody poses a real question. It's not a troll, it's a legitimate question. And so we never seem to actually respond to them. And sometimes I'll jump in there if I have the answers. But I'm curious as to why we don't do that, because that seems like the most authentic and fastest way to get residents information.
Yeah, it is something that we're working to get better at, is responding to actual questions. We don't respond to opinions ever. And then also, I just need to make a distinction that it depends on what channel it is. So on Facebook and Twitter, we are working to be better to responding at those questions. We don't always see them, so that takes a lot of effort and follow-up. On Nextdoor, every time I can talk to anybody, including residents, we need to be really clear that the city cannot see or respond to resident posts on Nextdoor. That's just the way Nextdoor is set up. So any conversations that are happening between residents on Nextdoor is not something we have access to, and we cannot respond. So it's really helpful when other members of the community who have story or access to information can share that, because we can't. And then other, like Arvada neighbors, it's not our practice to jump in there, but we do sometimes, watch conversations and then plan our own messaging to sort of give the right story, but on our platforms.
Perfect. Are we using a database such as Hootsuite to help control the communications of when they're posted? Because I know they also have data monitoring tools as well.
We use CoSchedule, which is a different product, and then some of us have access to more media monitoring, where we can see, I do see some social, I use Meltwater, for example. The police department uses Critical Mention, so we have some access to those things. CoSchedule recently changed their platform, and we can't see messages or the comments in CoSchedule. So we kind of have a bit of a patchwork.
Okay, understandable. Just when we go into future communications planning, I'd recommend us moving towards a platform that we can see messages directly as well as the comment threads. It just centralizes everything in nice little feeds, and you can move through with significantly less staff time and improve the communications two-way back and forth that way. So thanks, Rachel.
Yes, thank you. Moving on from social media, I want to talk about newsletters. We did add new newsletters this year. Newsletters are great. I love them because we're not subject to algorithms and the whims of businesses. So they're a nice way to give residents information that they're interested in, that they can sign up for, kind of raise their hand, and get that information. Like you heard about, we have newsletters for the bond projects that share weekly traffic impacts. We sent 163 distinct communications through our newsletter channels in 2022, which is a 48% increase from previous years. And we have an average open rate of 62%, which is outstanding for any sort of industry you could look for. You would expect to see much, much lower open rates. And some have higher than others, but that's the average. Our new website, which I'll talk about more tonight, also has an alerts and newsletter function, so we can get people signed up for even more, where we're controlling the message, we're getting to them, the clutter of their inbox, but we're getting to them without algorithms or ads. So I'm really excited about that. And then for video production, our media services produced over 90 hours of video in 2022, and we had 5,500 hours of watch time on YouTube, just YouTube, so that's not on Channel 8. And one under talked about, which improvement that we made in 2022 is that we added Channel 8 to the Roku and Apple TV apps. So you can watch Channel 8, you can watch this meeting on your Roku or Apple TV. You don't need cable, so you can watch it anywhere, which is really exciting. And they just took that on and initiated that project. The water tower, as you all know, is a really popular way to mark holidays and events. In 2022, we had 35 scheduled lightings. That's always a great way to build community pride and engagement. And people look forward to different lightings, including our high school graduation lightings each year. We also started in 2022 engagement pop-up events. So we met with over 2,000 residents at more than 20 events in 2022. And I'll share a lot more about that later, but it was a great program, a great way to meet residents where they are and share information. And based on that program, we were at the beginning of this year on really short notice able to go out and do our pop-up events at grocery stores to hand out reusable shopping bags. That was based on the experience that Emily Colm had already developed in her other pop-up stuff. So we got out there and handed out 5,000 reusable shopping bags with very short notice. And then finally, our website is our kind of keystone communication channel. And the number of viewers or users and page views actually fell in 2022. This could be attributed to not launching organized waste hauling in 2022. So in 2021, as you all recall, we had a high impact program that we were launching that probably generated a lot of traffic to our website. And thankfully, we weren't launching something of that scope this year. But our website is also not mobile friendly, and we're on the process of replacing it with a new solution. So hopefully next year I'll be here telling you that we have tons more page views. And then finally, and this is a little bit to Councilmember Smith's question to the bond project team, I just want to remind everyone that we use over 23 communication channels in our group. And so we're really thinking strategically, collaboratively, multi-channel, accessible. For the projects big and small, we never rely on one particular communication channel. We're thinking as broadly as we can. We know residents are busy. We need to meet them where they are. We can't expect them as much as we hope that they read every word of the Arvada report. Some people do, some people don't. Some people aren't on social media, or we won't pop up in their feed. So we're always thinking, how can we share as broadly as possible? So for something as small as a small change to something more impactful, we are really getting out there. And we're even, we're not just relying on digital. We've done yard signs. Our water bill inserts are really important. And we've increased our press releases as well in order to get more press coverage. So now I'm going to transition into talking about our work systems specifically. So this year, in 2022, we now have communication staff for each work system, and that's a first for the city, and it's really exciting. We have a great coordinated and collaborative team, and we're working together to develop strategy and messages for projects large and small. We meet weekly and actually many times a week just to talk about what's going on, look for opportunities to support each other and boost messages. And I'm really excited to share this work with you. We've got a really great team. They're working really, really hard. So I'm going to start with Safe Community, a bit of a somber note. As you all know, in 2022, we lost Officer Dylan Vakoff. And one thing that I just want to express is that a lot of communication professionals jumped in to assist the city and the APD through Colorado Fallen Heroes Foundation, as well as local communications professionals who came and provided mutual aid, and we really appreciate them. Those events bring a lot of attention, a lot of media attention, a lot of questions. So having those skilled professionals on our side was really, really helpful. And then one accomplishment that I'll share is that the police department has brought back their annual report, and the 2022 annual report was published earlier this month, and it has a really moving tribute to Dylan from his family. So I encourage you all to read it if you haven't already. Other safe community updates, the PD continues to measure their customer satisfaction with their Power Engage software. So if you call the PD for service, after that's over, you get a text message to take a survey. They get about a 40% response rate and have approximately a 90% satisfaction rate, and then they have processes in place for follow-up. Also in 2022, they worked to share updates about the body-worn camera mandate, work of the core team, and just all of the work of the PD. In 2023, they'll work to improve internal communication. As I mentioned, the return of the annual report, so we'll keep that moving forward, and as well as recruitment. And I want to just point out one of our wins is we have some really high quality recruiting videos that were a partnership between the PD and our media services group. So if you haven't seen those, you should watch them. One of them, I think it was the career one, was so moving. I thought maybe, for just a second, maybe I should be a police officer. But no. So I encourage you guys to watch them. Dave's making faces, I'm sure.
One comment on the Safe Community one. Can we get a better looking spokesperson for the police department?
It's in progress. I don't know if you know, they are hiring a second PIO, and I believe they wrote into the job description, must be better looking.
Good.
Yeah.
Yeah, we should have a junior class and a varsity class. We could downgrade the current one.
Mr. Detective Snelling, we do think the world of you, and you've done great work for us. But I got to get my gigs in while I can.
So I was going to actually give some thanks to Dave. Dave has been a great partner as we work through our emergency communication work. Really appreciate his expertise and his counsel as we've developed those plans, and I know he'll be really helpful moving forward. So thanks, Dave. All right, infrastructure. So the infrastructure work system is led by our communication manager, Katie Patterson, and she started with the city in July of 2022, and she really jumped in with both feet. So she's been working in 2022, taking over the bond project communication, and she led public information around our utility rate and fee increases. And one thing I want to note about the work that she did is she really worked hard to be transparent before the council vote. So it would have been easy to just say, here are the new fees and rates, and it's all kind of done. But she worked hard to share, meetings coming up. Here's the recording of the meeting. Here's what you guys talked about on social media and other platforms, so that residents could feel informed about the discussion as it was happening and not just find out about it afterwards. So in 2023, she'll continue to work on water system communication. You just heard from Mary Stahl, all the great things they have going on there. So sharing that story with the community so they know what's happening and the investments that we're making. She'll work on, continue to work on the pavement program, both from what the pavement program is and is not, and also improving the day-to-day communication for those neighborhoods affected by construction. And then the transportation group will be doing a transportation system master plan, and there's a public engagement portion of that, so that will be a priority in 2023. And one win I want to share is that our first neighborhood leader meeting of 2023 was at the Ralston Water Treatment Plant. We hosted about 15 neighborhood leaders who came in with a lot of their own ideas about our water system and left completely transformed, appreciative of the work that the team's doing, with a better understanding and a lot of confidence in the city team and in their water system. So that was a great opportunity for the team. Our community and economic development work system, the communication work is led by Liz Johnson. She started at the end of December 2022, so she's pretty new. In 2022, we worked on Old Town Strategic Reinvestment Plan, and then they did a resident survey on affordable housing in October. In 2023, she'll work with AIDA a lot on their community engagement and communications plan. So that's for residents, and then they also have a B2B portion that they want to do. She'll support the housing strategic plan as that develops, and then also supporting public understanding of development, as you all saw in the community survey. That's something that's a stressor for our community, so they're planning are working towards quarterly district meetings to talk specifically with different districts about what's coming up and different development challenges or opportunities that are specific to those neighborhoods. So it's still in development, but we're looking forward to having that in 2023. And then one of the wins for this work system is our Old Town Strategic Reinvestment Community Engagement. So we had record-setting engagement on Speak Up at nearly 3,000 participants, and that is growing now. We're in phase 3. This is our final phase of community engagement, and that's so we're going to end well over 3,000 participants. The community is deeply engaged in sharing their feedback around Old Town, and that's really great. We love to see it. And then for vibrant community and neighborhoods, that communication work is led by Sean Starr, who started with the city in October of 2022. So he's been working on golf and restaurant marketing, and he also worked on boards and commissions recruitment. And I just want to give a shout out to Sean because he brings a lot of creativity to his social media work, so he's doing lots of really great posts and Instagram posts for boards and commissions. And as you all know, we had very high applications for boards and commissions this year, and I have to think that it was in part due to Sean's efforts. And then for 2023, he'll be working on sustainability as that plan and section of VCN gets off the ground, communicating parks maintenance standards with our community, continuing our marketing efforts. And then another win is our La Letra post office mural. That was a really great project, community-driven, board and commission took it to the finish line, and then AMS and Sean really worked hard on this great video, and we got tons of positive press coverage of that mural. So really good work. And then our last work system, organizational and service effectiveness. So in 2022, we worked with the internal team on a safety survey to make sure we had good engagement around that. We've had leadership transitions and our emergency communications plan. So we worked to develop an annex to our overall emergency operations plan that's focused on public information in an emergency. And then for 2023, we'll be launching arvadaco.gov, our new website, that will be fully ADA compliant and mobile friendly. We've worked for several years to develop the requirements, to do focus groups, to figure out what our residents want, what our internal teams need for a modern web platform, and we think we're going to have it in arvadaco.gov. So we're really excited for that. We'll continue our emergency communication training through hopefully some tabletop exercises and increased coordination with our partners in Arvada Fire. And we'll work with our consultant and our internal team with developing our inclusive and accessible communication practices to ensure that everyone is supported as we roll out this fully ADA compliant website. We need to make sure that all of our communications are ADA compliant. They're also responsive to our community. And then we'll be talking about homelessness with the community, sharing the work that we're doing, monitoring public perceptions and things like that. And our wins is that we have this great city manager and two wonderful deputy city managers, so under their leadership, we'll just continue to move forward. All right, now for a marketing update. So council has directed us to do a marketing plan, and that is in development, but we haven't been doing nothing. So over the last year, a group of community partners and the city, we hired a PR consultant to work with us. So it's a visitor center, Arvada Chamber, Old Town Bid, and the city. We have a consultant, and we've been working really hard to have a coordinated approach to our public relations and media outreach. And we've been really successful with placing lifestyle stories. So things to do, new businesses, exciting stuff in Arvada. Last year, we placed 659 stories locally, regionally, and nationally. That's 32 million impressions through 71 different news outlets. And if we had paid for that advertising, it would have been about $300,000. So with a small investment and some focus on this, we've really made strides in our earned media. And we're getting better all the time. So, sometimes lifestyle stories can be really easy. It's fun to cover a festival, not so sexy to cover Old Town Parking Finder. But we are, just through increased conversations and sending more press releases, we're getting coverage for our kind of less sexy topics too. Okay, community engagement. 2022 was a big year for community engagement. We relaunched our Neighbors Connected program after a pandemic pause, started the pop-up program, and we've continued to grow Speak Up Arvada registered users. So our Neighbors Connected program has several different components, and one of them is this neighborhood leaders. These are people who have raised their hands and said that they want to be a leader in their neighborhood, and they sign up. It's voluntary, but they're supposed to come to 4 meetings a year to kind of get some leadership training or additional attention. And so in 2022, we had 89 neighborhood leaders, and there are 25 neighborhoods that have at least one neighborhood group. And this is a little bit confusing because the city has kind of said these are our neighborhoods, and they're pretty big. And we have a lot of them. But as a resident, you might not feel so connected to, several blocks away. It doesn't feel like that's your neighborhood. But according to us, it is your neighborhood. For example, I live in Wood Run. There's an HOA in Wood Run. There's my part of Wood Run. Then there's a creek, and then there's another part of Wood Run. So there's people on the other side of the creek. I don't know them. They don't feel like my neighborhood. But so you can understand why we have our neighborhoods, but then the neighborhood Neighbors Connected, it's kind of a different definition of neighbors. So that's why there's this 89 leaders in 25 neighborhoods. The map shows you kind of where those neighborhood leaders are. Last year, they covered things about topics of community safety, risk reduction. They did radical collaboration together, and then they wrapped up the year with a presentation from AIDA on economic development. And as I mentioned, this year we started with the Ralston Water Treatment Plant and our water reinvestment. These are our enrolled neighborhoods. You can see we've got neighborhoods across the city, but we also have pockets that either were engaged and are not now, or have never been. And so that will be something we'll focus on in 2023. In our Neighbors Connected, we also have neighborhood grants. We received 7 applications for the neighborhood improvement grants. That's from a mix of HOAs and traditional neighborhood groups. And then we also awarded 35 mini grants. For 2023, we're looking to make some changes to this program to make it easier for people to apply, but also to be mindful that HOAs have a bit of an advantage over traditional neighborhood groups for the improvement grants, because they tend to have like a private public space, a community space that they own that's not available to others. So they can do things like install gardens or shade structures that a traditional neighborhood would have to put into like a city park. And so we're looking for ways to make it, to make more options available for traditional neighborhoods. And then the mini grants are really meant to be sort of like a time-based, have a block party, do a neighborhood cleanup. So we're trying to make that a little bit more streamlined.
Did the rules, we don't see those anymore. I remember we used to see these, I think, at one point. I think we set rules around it. With the HOAs, is there a rule about how many times they can get awarded a grant, the same HOA?
I think there are, but I can't tell you what the rules are right now.
I have an answer because I am one of the community leaders, and I applied 2 times in each year, like once a year.
Yeah.
And it's every other year you can apply.
Right,
Yes.
because I remember we were having a problem when we approved these. I guess we don't see them anymore. It's been a while since I've seen these. We were having a problem with the same HOA coming every time asking for more and more money. And the idea was to engage more neighborhoods than just the same HOA, so.
Yeah.
I just wanted to know if those rules were still in place, so it sounds like they were. Because I remember every other year was, I think, one of the rules we asked for.
Yeah, we've run into just inequities in HOAs have more resources and, can apply for these and put more money, they can do more matching and things like that. So it's changes are not to punish HOAs, but to make more options available for traditional neighborhoods.
Yeah, and I don't mind, like, it's just having the same grantee every year, getting the same money when there's so many neighborhoods. So as long as we're spreading the love with that grant across the city, not just to the same HOA every year, I'm good with it.
Great.
Rachel, the other thing, my recollection when we used to see the neighborhood improvement grants was that there were lots of requests by HOAs for what was essentially deferred HOA maintenance. So replacing a fence that had been there for years, or an entrance sign or something like that. And that was always one of the more controversial things. I would imagine you guys are taking some measures to not be just subsidizing HOA responsibilities for maintenance, that these actually are improvements.
Yes.
And not just replacement of worn out assets.
Yeah, we're trying to get back to the roots of the program, which is meant to create connection or foster resiliency in face of stressors or sustainability. So, getting requests for replacing sidewalk concrete, which is really, their responsibility, it doesn't further any of those things. So trying to just make sure we're focused on what the intent of the program is.
Thank you.
Yeah. And this map just shows you the 2022 grants, where they went. So it is across the city, not concentrated in any one location. Block parties are a really popular way that neighbors connect with one another. We have one block party trailer and outdoor movie equipment. And during rental season, it's pretty much unavailable all the time. It's rented out. So we are capacity limited, even though we do limit each neighborhood group to just one rental per season. But we are looking at ways that we can increase capacity, include people who haven't been included in the past.
So this has come up a couple times for several years. I would encourage that we figure out another way to grow the capacity for sure. And I know this has been around for 5 or 6 years where we've had capacity issues and no one can get it or it's tied up. So, I would encourage sooner than later if we can figure out how to increase capacity, either get another trailer or what the case is, because they are a hit and they do bring communities together. But I feel like we've been talking about that for a long time. So maybe we can put some resources into growing this program a little bit more.
It is on the one-time fund list,
It
a
is on the
second
one-time.
trailer.
So that's for us to approve if it shows up, I guess.
Well,
Just as a reminder, part of our challenges in the past has been being able to deliver
the resources.
and manage the trailer, because
Right.
that's also required. We do have a partnership with Arvada Rentals.
yes,
Now,
Arvada
so-
Rentals. Yeah.
So they deliver it.
Yes,
Oh.
Yeah.
but even with that, there's still some additional work. So
Yeah.
should it rise on the priority, you will definitely see it, but there is a long list of one-time requests.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah, I think block parties you can have a block party without the trailer. And, we've asked for a second one, but obviously clean water, wastewater disposal, roads. There's lots of things
a
ahead
couple
of it.
$1,000s for a trailer is not that much.
Ms. Simpson?
Just confirming, if we're putting in for a second one, we've talked to Arvada Rentals. They're okay with that, right?
We have not.
Okay.
So yes, more work to be done.
Okay.
But it is a fun way to build community. And as you can see that we have, it's been rented out across the city again. So good geographic distribution. So in 2023, our neighborhood engagement coordinator, Candace Svoboda, was promoted to assistant to the city manager. So next week, we will welcome our new neighborhood engagement coordinator, Brady Porterfield Finn. He has a lot of experience with building volunteer programs and community engagement, so I'm really excited for what he's going to bring to the table. We'll continue to engage with neighborhoods that are not currently in the program, as well as creating a neighborhood engagement plan, which is part of the council's strategic plan. Now to talk about Speak Up Arvada. This is our online engagement platform. We have been growing our participation from our residents on Speak Up every year. And these different tiers of engagement, aware is like the lowest level of engagement, so you just kind of go to a page and then leave. Informed is you go to a page and you maybe click a link. And then engaged is you actually participate in a survey or answer one of the tools. So you can see we've grown the segment of engaged visitors 63% over 2021 numbers. Our visits are up 19% from last year, with 16,000 visits. When I made these slides a couple weeks ago, we had 3,690 registered participants, and from Emily Colm, our engagement coordinator's update today, we have 3,789. So we are growing our registered participants daily. We set a goal in 2021 to have 5% of our residents registered on Speak Up Arvada, which would be roughly 6,000 folks. And we are just, we're really been making a lot of progress towards that goal. So we're getting close, still more work to do, but we are also growing the number of projects on Speak Up Arvada year over year. So in 2022, we had 23 active projects, which is 5 more than the year before. And the year before, we had so many more than the year before that. We do think it's important to provide a variety of projects in Speak Up Arvada. So you can see from our top projects in 2022, the top one was Old Town Arvada Visioning, as I mentioned. Second one was a movie poll. So we did a viewer's choice for the Festival Commission, their last movie in the parks of the year. So that is just fun and quick way to get people to register on Speak Up. But we also get a lot of engagement on less sexy topics like shared micromobility and snow removal. So it's really nice to see that people are participating in a variety of projects and not just the fun ones. And we'll continue to offer a variety of different ways to engage. I also want to mention here that we do have a promotion strategy that is multi-channel, so we don't rely on people just coming to Speak Up Arvada and knowing about a project. We do send an email newsletter from Speak Up. We also do social media. We do yard signs if it's a place-based engagement. Arvada News. Emily has hosted pop-ups. Stanley Lake Library Trailhead is a good example where she and the consultant team were at Stanley Lake Library talking to patrons to get their feedback on the trailhead design, which I think was really successful. And then there were also yard signs on the trail and then in the library. So we really are trying to be as comprehensive as possible to drive people to those opportunities, especially the people that are most affected by the decision, which is a principle of good public participation. So Emily's been doing great work as a consultant for our other teams to investigate who is around the project, identify people to talk to, and really be thoughtful about our approach. And then also, we do have another launch coming up of another project I think will get some nice engagement. So if you're at the Kite Festival, there will be a launch of our Gold Strike Park engagement with a ideas jam for our kiddos. So it's a nature playgroundy idea. So they'll have some things interactive that kids can play with, and that'll launch the engagement for Gold Strike Park. So I mentioned our pop-up engagement program was new in 2022, and Emily worked with community partners to table at grocery stores, different events that were already happening in parks, more places. She shared high priority topics like Lookout Alert was a big one, and then opportunities to connect with the city. She also answers questions. She brings things back to the city team and finds the right person to follow up on it. And this was a really successful program. This is where she was in 2022. So as I mentioned, she met with over 2,000 residents at more than 20 locations. We were in every zip code of the city and both counties. So quite comprehensive in our approach. And in 2023, we'll continue more of that. So looking for more places to table. Emily was at Winterfest and had the highest engagement for any event. So I think people are really appreciative of seeing a representative from the city out in the community where they can just walk up and get some information. She'll work to continue to build our internal capacity for high quality engagement and partner with work systems when they need her for community engagement opportunities. Okay, and then 2023 strategic priorities. I've mentioned most of these through the presentation. So launching arvadaco.gov by June 1st, 2023. That's in advance of election season, which is important. And then also in advance of the 2024 deadline for compliance with Colorado House Bill 211110, which is around accessibility of digital platforms. So as I mentioned, that website will be fully ADA compliant. We'll work with our DEI consultant to review best practices for accessibility and inclusion in our communication, and then provide training for team members to make sure that they know what that looks like and what's appropriate for our community. We'll complete our marketing plan as directed by City Council, and we'll look to engage with new members of the community who haven't ever been engaged or have been engaged and then not recently. And then finally, we'll continue to build our emergency communication competencies. It's really important that all members of the communication team can step up in the event of an emergency and lead our public information. So that's something we're going to work towards. And then finally, none of this work is possible without all these people and our community partners. So we have a really great team. It's a pleasure to work with them. They have such great ideas and passion for the city and really bring a lot of expertise and knowledge to the table. And so, I'm deeply grateful that I get to lead all of their work. And that concludes my presentation. So I'm happy to take any additional questions you may have or feedback on the questions that I've provided about the direction of our communication and engagement efforts.
Very good. Ms. Simpson, you're first.
Thank you. So I actually already asked my questions. I just wanted to commend the team. Emily, I see you back there. So I actually always see Emily out at the event. She does a great job. She just has a very welcoming aura about her that people feel very welcome to talk to, which is always really great. I think it helps us a lot. I appreciate the ramping up of the earned media as well as the marketing efforts. I think it's fantastic. We're a large city. People get their communications in very different ways. And so I just appreciate seeing all the diversity of effort and thought that goes into this. And Dave, I'm sorry they were picking on you. You're great. So.
Mr. Marriott.
Yeah, I have a question. So the question I have is, it seems like we're doing communications a little differently now with 5 different communications people, one for each work system, where in the past it seemed like we had a communications director and then the police had a PIO or something like that. And I know AIDA got some of their communications through one of their team members. And this seems like a large increase in our communications effort. Is it, or is it just a restructure of kind of the existing way we were doing stuff?
I think there's a bit of both. So I started with the city in 2019 as the communication manager for infrastructure. That was a new position, brought about by the need to communicate the bond projects. And then with that, and at the same time, AIDA's communication person sort of transitioned into CED communication. So then we were a bit uneven because we had 2 OSE and then 2 work systems had communication, the VCN and the PD, and then VCN didn't. So the ad is really VCN having a communications staff member. But we all work together, and so we are a cohesive unit. And we are meeting constantly to talk about what everybody's talking about and having kind of full transparency of that. But it's, from 2019 to now, it's not a large increase. It's a 1 position increase.
Okay. So this is not a question for you to answer because it would be unfair to answer this. More of a comment than anything. I mean, this is an incredibly robust communications effort. And I think for a city, it is important that we communicate. However, as a city, it's also important that we build roads and maintain our infrastructure and playgrounds and parks and all kinds of other things that are core functions of the city as well. And I would just encourage the team and us to keep in mind the right sizing of some of these things and I'm not saying we're not right now, but just as we go to always be evaluating with that, because I think it's easy to be proud of doing such a terrific job of something like communications, like I think we're doing, and lose maybe perspective on how much communications we actually do need to do. So I'm not saying we're wrong right now, but I just want to make sure we keep that as part of the mix, that we're always making a conscious decision about how much communication we should be doing, and more importantly, what that communication should be costing us, and keep an eye on abilities to have efficiency and not just let this grow to the point where we lose our ability to do other things.
Can
Mr. Jones, do you have anything?
I do not. I appreciate the feedback, and well, actually, I do have one question with regard to the PD and the communications that they put out. And I don't know that if you're prepared to answer this, but Dave's there. But when they put out communications about events that are happening on Twitter and all the different communication channels, do they have the same issue with Nextdoor that they can't see what's being said? So it doesn't. It's those agencies that have the issue.
Yes, all agencies are not allowed to see resident communication on Nextdoor. Is the way the platform is designed, and it's intentional.
Okay. No, that was really my only question as you were going through. But again, I think that the cities, the things that you've done to kind of maybe counterpoint Mr. Marriott, the things that the city's done over the last year, 18 months from a communications perspective, I think has been really good. Challenge always is communication styles and how people hear things or want to hear things or get the information. We're always going to be missing some segment of the population that says we don't communicate enough. So probably doesn't matter how much money you throw at it, you're never going to get them. So anyway, hey, great job. Appreciate the update.
Mr. Fiver?
Did you want to say something before I did? You
Council
can.
before staff. I'll go at the end.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right. So the way I look at this is, if I reflect over the last 12 years, we had a point where when you kind of gauge engagement, I think is really around our public information officers. I'm looking at all of you. When nobody's in the audience, we think we're doing okay. But then when we get people engaged and involved, then are we communicating the right thing? And so when you look at the ebb and flow of community engagement, I think we might be hitting a stride that's probably been normalized over the last few years. That's better because I think when I think back, when you look at your work systems, that's actually a good thing. I've noticed a lot of government are starting to do the work systems because we're going to miss an important story or an important message or important news that does get some folks upset that they weren't told or they weren't engaged. And so I think the fact that you have identified covering those bases through your work systems gets a more robust community engagement. And I think that's critical. I don't think we should lighten up on it because part of what we need to do as government is to engage our community and make them aware and get them to be involved. We can sit here in a bubble and think all day long we're doing great, but if we're not having folks like yourselves helping us tell our stories, one of the things that I get most excited around the city are the employees. And when we celebrate those employees and tell their stories and their projects and their successes and everything else, I feel like the citizenship that I have in my community is even has more feelings and more engaged. So I differ a little bit. I think that you did the right thing of how you adjusted your systems to meet that need, because when you talk the story about your snowplow driver, or you talk the story about the utilities rates, or you talk the story of the police department and the recruiting and the quality that you are producing at this level now is remarkable. I mean, the staff you have, it's professional. That's all I can say is it's beyond professional. In fact, I would always try to recruit some of these folks because I think they should come work for the state because
Nope.
they did such a great job.
No, thank you.
But they are wonderful, and they tell the story through a lens of a camera or artwork or some sort of marketing. And so keep doing that. I think that I struggle with social media because I completely dropped out except for LinkedIn. That's all. I'll leave it there. It's great to hear Facebook's failing right now. Yeah, in my opinion. And Twitter, I don't care. Both of them can go down. But I just like the old-fashioned mail. And now that I have Comcast again, I am watching Channel 8, and I'm like, wow, I have missed so many cool things that I thought I was up on with YouTube and re-celebrating your team. So keep the communication going. I think that's great. We can never do enough. And if we think we need to pull back, we're just going to get in the slinger and somebody's going to be upset. So keep doing it. I just want to tell you all, I know you all, and you all do a great job. And sometimes no news is good news in my eyes. And thank you for what you all do every day, because you make not only this council look good, but you make the whole city look good, and all your peers and the team here look good. So keep it up. And if there's anything we can do to help you out some more, like get a trailer, like a community block trailer would be nice. $10,000. You know what? Sponsorships would work. I bet you we can find some sponsorships to pay for that. And I'll end with this. That community engagement, that trailer, I remember when it first came out and where it went, it brought so many people out of their houses and into the block. And the whole purpose of them was to get that engagement. And you find out when you go to those block parties that neighbors didn't even know neighbors, and they were next to each other for 10, 15, 20 years. And that trailer brought some sort of interest of bringing people out. And right now, that's what Arvada is unique about is we're a neighborhood community where we love being in neighborhoods and being connected. And we as a city, we're not a big mall, we're not a big downtown, we're not anything else. So let's grab what's unique to us and celebrate. And those are little wins. And so if we can continue doing those celebration of communities, let's keep doing it. So, and I'll help sponsor one if you want.
Thank you.
Ms. Smith.
That was a lot to unpack. He's got his top
Let me
hat
do it
energy
again.
on.
Let me unpack it. No, I'm just kidding.
I'll be succinct. To Councilmember Pfeiffer's point, the a Get to Know Your City campaign would be amazing. You know, we do love highlighting our staff. We could leverage that and build on that engagement just so people know each other and maybe get to know your cop if to the level in which they're comfortable sharing their personal information or their photos. I think that would be great. To Councilmember Marriott's point, as we continue to grow our engagement, looking at utilizing interns, you know, picking someone from Red Rocks if we can, even just outside of your department, but in general, utilizing some of those interns that need experience could be helpful and cost effective. For what you wanted us to see in some of the outreach, there's a ton of new Arvadans that have moved here within the past couple of years that it would be really amazing to see a little bit of an educational component. I know in Jefferson County newsletter, every time they have like an image, like a historical question, and it's trivia, where we could do something like that with Arvada, you know, a picture of an old historical house or a person, and having that trivia, I think, is really a great way to educate some of the newer people in the community. We talked at the strategic planning retreat on Friday about how we have tons of people apply for the boards and commissions, which sounds like your coworker's doing a really great job. But we have a lot of nonprofits that are in the community that need board positions filled that don't. So I wonder if we can leverage bringing that in a little bit more succinctly. And I just had one question on the cost that we spend on advertising. Do you know how much we're spending on advertising?
So like placing ads places?
Like Facebook advertising?
Next to nothing.
Okay. I guess I had a second question. The other one is, I have never seen anything written in Spanish, and that's just a demographic we don't seem to be touching at all.
We have done work in Spanish. So for right now, we've mostly focused on things that are high impact or health and safety. So for example, the lead line outreach was available in Spanish, and waste hauling was available in Spanish, Russian, and Korean, as well as English, just because those, according to the census, those are our languages spoken here. So we made sure it was available in all those languages. But we don't print everything, but we do make it available. And interestingly, we recently got a proposal for some communication support that recommended against Spanish translations because we don't have that many Spanish speakers. It's a very small number. So it's something that we'll look to MGT to support us on of how we make those decisions about translations. So we can be strategic and looking at what our community looks like and what they need. But that's kind of where we're at with translations. We need to focus more actually on accessibility for older adults with vision problems. So that's something, or low vision. That's something that we've been working on. Our Arvada report, some of the colored boxes were difficult to read. So we've been changing that so that older adults can look at them because that is our demographic, and Spanish speakers may be much smaller than we think.
Awesome, thank you.
Mr. Mormon.
I just want to add to some things that my colleagues have said. I think you guys do an amazing job, and I do want to give a shout out to Tomas, who I did work with on a video, and I thought he did an awesome job, so I appreciate that. And then I think something that Councilmember Smith had said I wanted to add on to was, you know, I always love listening to the Colorado postcard on CPR because there's always some tidbit about Colorado that I'm learning about. And so, you know, I think something along those kind of lines about just, you know, information about Arvada that you may not know, you know, kind of did you know, or, you know, just something along those lines that I think people have interest in and could learn more about our great city. And maybe there's a connection there with the Visitor Center on that effort too. But Thanks for your work.
I just want to make a plug for Emily. She researched several posts for Women's History Month on notable Arvada women.
Nice.
That's why I know that there was a female mayor, because Emily's work. We also, to that point with the sharing information about the history of Arvada, one of our top performing Facebook posts is a post about Wadsworth Boulevard, and it's had over 100,000 engagements. It pops up in the feed from time to time, and it's just a historic photo that shares a tidbit about Wadsworth.
Yeah.
So we are trying, but
Yeah.
we can definitely do more.
That's great. Thank you.
Yeah, I think you're doing a terrific job. I think with regard to, and I like this concept of sort of building up the historical perspective on Arvada, because it's one of the things that makes it so special. And obviously, the Historical Society's lost some great leaders here recently, but there are still people there who we can resource. So I think that's certainly a source we ought to be using. I'm thrilled that you're in partnership with the Chamber, the Visitors Center, and the BID, because the cross-marketing benefits all of us. And so what you're doing in that regard, I think, is absolutely terrific. So keep up the good work. And I hear where Mr. Marriott is coming from, that we don't want to have mission creep or try to, have a supersized department. But I think, frankly, we're right-sized. The people that are doing it are doing a great job. You even make me look good on the videos, which is pretty damn tough. I hope the next mayor is somebody who's much more competent than I've been at doing this. But it's a good, it's a good opportunity for each of us to be spokespeople for our community, and to utilize those platforms when appropriate. And it's great to showcase new businesses, to showcase city services. So I urge councils going forward to continue to be engaged in that arena. And, Detective Snelling does a pretty good job. So, Ms. Gillis?
Really, thank you, Council, for your compliments to the team. And I did want to be a little bit more specific to Mr. Councilmember Marriott's comments. Some of the positions, although it looks like there's a big influx, were repurposing of existing positions, so they moved and transferred. And it was a deliberate effort based upon communications from Council to ensure transparency and public trust. We have been implementing some very big projects. Waste hauling was one, but the bond projects themselves have required a lot of attention. So I do feel right-sized right now, and I also recognize, should things really slow down around here, there might be different needs which will be evaluated. But the people that are here with us have majority come from repurposing of existing positions.
Yeah.
That's good to hear. Anything else to come before us tonight, Ms. Gillis?
No, sir.
Very good. Well, my hat's off to council for. It's been an enjoyable evening. Good information on all fronts. We stand adjourned.
Go Boilermakers.